Hi, I'm Dr. Kringen. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about this class that you're about to take. It's Quantitative Applications for Criminal Justice, and it's a stats class. And so I think the first thing we need to talk about is the way a lot of students feel when they start taking a stats class. And so, frankly, a lot of students have a lot of anxiety, and I understand that. I want to make sure you understand what the class is like, and hopefully it helps with some of that anxiety, right? So a lot of the anxiety that students feel relates to the underlying issue that there's some math involved in this class. But I want to make it clear that it's not a math class. This is not a mathematical presentation of statistics, right, where we're looking at sort of deep mathematics and the way it relates to probability and whatnot. This is an applied statistics class. It's a social science class where we're primarily interested in concepts and your ability to use statistics to answer social science questions, right? Now that doesn't mean there's no math involved, right? But using a computer or a calculator, what you need to be able to do is add, subtract, multiply, divide, square a number, and take a square root. If you can do all those things with the assistance of a calculator or computer, you can do all the math that's required, right? So, the other issue that comes into play here is there's anxiety involved when the class starts because you have to be comfortable trusting the process of learning. And a lot of times when you're learning things in class, you're learning more about something you kind of already understand. And that's pretty easy and it feels pretty comfortable because your feet are underneath you, right? You're real solid from the very beginning. For some of you, this may be very different. And so you're in an entirely different world. It's like learning to speak a different language, right? You just don't necessarily feel in the beginning like you have any idea what's going on. But that is the process of learning from scratch, right? From ground zero. The other thing that's challenging about it is sometimes you need some of the later material to really understand what's in the very beginning, right? And there's no way around that. But that does relate to something that I hear very often from students, which is that after a period of time, I didn't understand why it was so hard in the beginning for me, right? So that's a very common experience, and it's something that you may, well experience as a student. So just to keep those things in mind. The other issue that comes up is the online components of the class. For some people, that can be a bit daunting, and the main piece of advice I can give you there is don't panic. Just contact your instructor if you have issues with the content or the actual online class itself. If I'm the instructor for a class, you email me. If you're using a different instructor, contact them according to what they've asked in the syllabus. But your instructors are here to help you learn this material, and it's very important that you use them as a resource, especially if you feel yourself starting to panic. Now, the one thing I'll say about that is that online courses are not entirely the same as on-ground courses in that you have a little more flexibility about when you're going to kind of do things. Now, there are dates for assignments and whatnot that are due dates, and those are real, but you may be a day ahead or a day behind at any point with the tasks that need to be done, like reading the books, like getting through discussion posts and going through module content. I'll talk about all of those things in a bit of detail here in a minute. It's really important that you stay up with the class and that you don't let yourself get behind, because the panic then can be a whole lot more problematic, right? When you have a whole lot that you need to get caught back up on. So keep that in mind. As far as the class goes, we're going to use Microsoft Excel. The book that we use as the text that I'll introduce in a moment uses Microsoft Excel for you to do your calculations. And so I do this because Excel is available to almost everyone, and you will likely have access to Excel for the rest of your life. Beyond that, just learning and enhancing your skills with Excel is a very good thing to do because you use Excel for many, many things that have nothing to do with statistics. And so you do have access to SPSS, which is the statistical package for social sciences, through the university. You can download it from Blackboard and install it on your computer. I believe it runs the license for 4 years, so you have that for a while. And you can do all of this work in that package as well. And there's a whole bunch of other software that you can use to run statistics, right? I'm pretty much software agnostic. This is about you learning to understand statistical tests and interpret them. And so how you generate the number is less important. The mechanism in this class that's taught in the main book is Excel. And so that's kind of what we'll default to. The books for the class, there are actually two of them. The first book is a textbook. It's called Statistics for People Who Think They Hate Statistics. And it gives you formulas, explanations, walks you through the process of calculating and understanding statistics. It's written in a way that's a little more accessible than a lot of statistics books, so I hope you find it a little bit easier. The other book is a nonfiction New York Times bestseller. It's called The Drunkard's Walk: How Randomness Rules Our Lives. And it gives you a number of examples of things that you see in sports and medicine and movie production, just totally different areas where these underlying ideas that drive statistics play out, right? We're going to talk throughout this course about the difference between what I see and what I should believe. A huge distinction we'll come back to over and over again. And a lot of the book is based around that, where we believed things based upon what we maybe saw that maybe weren't correct, right? So we want to do some reading in there, and I hope you enjoy it as a reader and that it really reinforces the conceptual part of the class. The last thing that you have here to think about in the beginning is how the class is set up. There are 6 learning modules, and they're predominantly the same. And in each module, you kind of do a series of steps. So you do a pre-assessment journal, which is something that you write a response to a prompt before you've read anything. And this is just to give us a baseline of where you're at to help us have some context for helping you through the material. The next thing you do is you work through some online activities, watching some videos, reading some stuff online, reading in your books, and then you engage in this discussion board. Now the discussion is based on the reader. It's based upon the Drunkard's Walk. And so you're going to be talking about various topics in the book and how they might apply to criminal justice. And good discussions, first of all, you'll make an initial post yourself in response to the prompt, and then you'll respond to 2 other people as a kind of a follow-up. And good discussion is about having an information-based discussion. It's not about saying, hey, I liked your post. It was great! Exclamation point. It's about adding to the ideas, or maybe even bringing up a little disagreement about what somebody has had to say, and using the information, right? So it's like saying something like, well, you know, I think that example makes sense, but is that really a sample, right? Because the book talks about this being a sample, maybe not that being a sample, right? And so using that kind of course information in the discussion itself is what's really important, okay? The next thing you do is a module assignment. You can see the syllabus for the specifics on this, but these are multiple choice question sets that you answer about statistical concepts. You may do some calculations and choose the correct number. And so the main thing you want to know there is that if you don't like the grade, you can do it again. Again, look to the syllabus for the specifics. You can try it again. You can try to improve your grade. Your actual recorded grade becomes the mean or the average of whatever number of attempts you undertake. Up to the maximum allowed. But also keep in mind that you don't absolutely get the same questions each time. It kind of samples these questions from a larger set, and so you will get some different questions that are addressing the same concepts but maybe asking them in a little bit different way. So it's not as simple as saying, I wrote down the questions I got wrong, found the answers, and now I get 100. After that, keep in mind Module 1 does not have an exercise set. The other elements of the class aren't in the modules per se. After Module 3 but before Module 4, you'll do a midterm, which will be posted. It'll be like a traditional midterm. It'll have some questions where you answer some questions either via writing some short answers or doing some calculations and presenting some numbers, and you'll upload your midterm to the system. After the 6th module, you do a final, which is the format is exactly the same. And the very last thing you do is you write a final reflection, which is a 2-page essay where you're comparing what you read about in the Drunkard's Walk to the actual statistics you learned, to see if you've been able to bridge these 2 different ways of presenting very similar information. So by the time you get to the end of the course, that should be straightforward. You should feel comfortable doing that. I hope you enjoy reading the book. I hope you enjoy the class. And if you're in one of my sections, feel free to reach out to me as soon as you have any needs whatsoever.